Sleeves here with the Senior Pickleball Report, powered by TNC Network. Let's get it going. Today we're talking with Tom Tueller, who's been playing pickleball for quite a while, from JBB United, from the newly formed National Pickleball League. But before we get to that, if you like this content, consider subscribing. Helps us out a great deal. Make a comment. Hit that like button. And hey, check out all the links in the description, from pickle, PCKL paddles, to FitFill shoes, Just Paddles if you want a bigger selection of paddles. Check out our newsletter as well, and subscribe to that. Also, hey, Thrive Paddles, new company coming out, thrivepb.com, link in the description. They are all about the weight and how the paddle is weighted, swing weight, which matters the most. They'll be coming out in a short time, probably this September. So subscribe to their newsletter and get involved with our friends at Thrive. Okay, let's get in that conversation with Tom. Tom Tueller, welcome to the Senior Pickleball Report. Tom plays for JBB United out of Naples, the newly formed National Pickleball League. And he has been kind enough to join us today. I believe you're in Utah. Is that correct?
I am. St. George.
St. George, right on. So welcome to the show, Tom.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you got a little bit of a different kind of story than most people I talk to. You've been in this game a little longer than a lot of us. So kind of share your background and how pickleball came into your life.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Well, you got to go back to 2009. I had to look it up the other day because it has been a while. So 14 years ago, I was, I guess, first introduced. It's kind of a funny story. So backing up a little bit, let me just give a little background on myself.
Sure.
So even though I'm in St. George, Utah now, I was born and raised in Boise, Idaho, and graduated from Boise State, and grew up playing a lot of sports, loved to upland game hunt, played basketball, baseball, football, but the one, I guess, in high school that I excelled the most in was baseball. Okay. So I played, all through school, and then also Legion ball for several years. And,
Sure.
And that was the sport that I excelled the most in. But then when it, graduating and stuff, and a few of my buddies and teammates were going to go on and try to pursue it at the collegiate level, I just didn't have the right opportunity, or it wasn't right for me. So being an extremely competitive person that I am, I guess I had to look forward to, college intramurals and a lot of city league sports. And so I played a lot of those over the years, lots and lots of softball. And then I guess fast forward several years, I'm living in Boise, met my wife, and we had 3 little kids. And it was one of those things where I met her. She was finishing up her last year of pharmacy school. It's called rotations, kind of like a residency with doctor. Sure. They call it rotations. And she was she had been away at school for a long time, was wanting to get back closer to home, and home for her is St. George, where we're at now. So okay. I ended up changing jobs, and we moved with 3 little kids from Boise down to St. George, and kind of lost some contacts playing, those sports and stuff. And so I was looking for something, and decided to take the kids over to our little local park one day. And there was some grass area and swing, and off to the side there were a couple of courts. And for all I knew, they were tennis courts. And a neighbor friend happened to be there, and he kind of signaled me over. And so I walked over to check it out, and he said, "Hey, this is, pickleball. I got an extra paddle in my bag. You want to try it out?" And I said, "Sure." So, I got the paddle out and hit a couple of times and thought, "Oh, this could be pretty fun." Yeah. And then he said, actually there's some tournaments and some competitive play. You ought to look into it. And so it wasn't more than a month. I was looking up kind of who was in charge of the local tournaments, and it happened to be a guy down at Sun River, which is a retirement area. Not all the players that played in the Sun River tournaments were were, I guess, retirees or older, but I guess the majority were. So he asked me to, I rather asked him some questions, how do I get signed up? How does it work? What do you recommend? And ended up signing my wife and I up for mixed. And so this was, a month, less than a month after I was first kind of hit my first ball, and had a few practice rounds, but certainly wasn't very dialed in or experienced at that point. So I got home, told my wife, hey, I signed us up for a tournament down at Sun River. So she's like,
go over.
Yeah, game over. She was a dancer in college, and played just a little bit of recreational tennis, but didn't have any experience either with pickleball.
Right.
So we decided to give it a go and went down, and we ended up signing up at the 4-5 skill level. And the guy that was kind of giving me some advice or recommendation on signing up said, hey, a lot of these opponents that you play against may be older, but I wouldn't necessarily overlook them. Some of them are actually quite good at playing, and there's some technique to it and stuff. And so I signed us up. I think it was a 4-5 level. And then we went out there and won the first match, and I was feeling pretty good. And then sure enough, the second match came, and when we hit a little adversity and started getting down a little bit, that was when the crap hit the fan, so to speak. So I started getting a little more aggressive, as you do in mix, which isn't typically my style, but I started poaching a few of her balls, and she was kind of giving me the evil eye, and we were still down a few points. So I called a timeout before it got too bad. And I looked over and I said, by the way, Sleeves, this is not the right thing to say. It got me in big trouble. I said, hey, do you want to hit the ball or do you want to win? Oh, that was a big mistake. So she called me a couple of choice names, and then I think we ended up losing that one and winning one more. And I guess the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah. But I mean, starting off at a 4.5, boy, it really just took the fire hose to the mouth. No sipping it in, huh?
Yeah. That's one thing I do take a little pride in. That was the only tournament in playing competitively for 14 years that I signed up one down, I guess, from the top, or 4-5. I would rather, just being so competitive, I would rather lose in a 5-0 bracket, know that I've got to get better and beat the top, rather than win knowing, hey, there's maybe some better players there. So
that's what I do too.
4-5, other than a couple maybe small little tournaments or get-togethers years ago, where 4-5 was the highest. I've always signed up at the 5-0 level, and now in recent years calling it like the pro or
right. And I think that's smart. I mean, you really find out in a hurry what you have to work on. You find out the holes in your game instantly, because there's people that are out there that are obviously at a higher level, a better level than you sometimes, and they exploit those weaknesses, and then you go back to the woodshed and work it out.
Yeah, I certainly do.
Yeah. So let's talk. I mean, obviously, starting in 2009, and here we are, 2023. Did you ever think in your wildest imagination that there'd be a pro league at all, let alone 50 plus?
No. In fact, funny story. So back maybe 10 years ago, I was playing at some local courts in St. George, and a friend said, hey, there's some of these paddle manufacturers that are actually sponsoring players, and they'll pay for your tournament entry fees and provide equipment and paddles for you. And I literally looked at him and said, why would somebody do that? What's it up for them? And I honestly didn't even think there would be sponsors, let alone professional leagues, where it's gone today. So just incredible growth, and it's hard to believe what all's happened over the years that I've been playing.
Absolutely. And you've most of us that have been playing, let's say, since a lot of us have jumped in right before or during the pandemic. So let's just say the last 5 years, the changes you must have seen in paddle technology starting in 2009. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. I've always been an Onix sponsored player, and I think I was their first group of players that they ever sponsored. And I remember playing down in nationals. I want to say it was 2000 and maybe 13, 14, somewhere in there. They bust us all over to some private courts after we were playing one day and just said, hey, we want to shoot some video footage and kind of show you some of the new paddles we have and maybe get some action shots and stuff of you.
Right.
And so it's hard to believe now with the new carbon paddles, and certainly the game's changed, and it's a little bit frustrating to hear. There's certainly better players. It's a quicker pace. More people are pulling the trigger earlier, but there was still really good players. There might have been a lot fewer of them, but when you got to nationals and big tournaments where people congregated from several states, there were certainly good players, but it's just changed. Like you said, just with the exponential growth of players and technology and the new paddles, how they can roll those, the former college tennis players being able to transition really quickly. It's certainly just changed. Unbelievable.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously there's more spin to the game, more power to the game. You could take the ball below the net more. Are there things that you miss about prior to that technology coming in, about the game itself and the way it's played?
Yeah, I mean, my personal style and what I've always been is more just not having the natural tennis strokes and being able to roll it in a pure backhand like a lot of players have. Just, use some athleticism, speed, and patience is probably the one thing that players that have known me over the years and have watched me and played with me know that's kind of what I do. I have, rather than put a lot of spin, kind of a push dink, and I'll kind of bait a little bit, but I'll more try to wait till somebody else speeds it up, so to speak, rather than me initiate the hard game or the bangers.
Right. So, what things have you had to adapt to? Like, obviously, your game has had to evolve on some level to sort of keep up. So, talk about some of the things maybe you've added to your game over the years to play at a pro level at the senior, in the senior circuit, so to speak.
Yeah, thank you. I try to find that good balance of not being too passive and too slow to maybe initiate. So moving the ball around in some dinks. I've drilled a little bit, just worked on the fundamentals. Yeah. I've tried to work on drills. As you get a little bit older, some of the neuroscience and stuff, some of these drills have come into play a little bit more on seeing the ball, quicker reaction times. Right. Some of the drilling and just like I said, trying to find that balance. I haven't necessarily changed the style or what brought me success, early on or in some of the tournaments over the years, but I've tried to, certainly adapt a little bit and not be too passive, like I said, in my style of play. Right on.
So let's go back to playing professionally at 50 plus, champions division. And obviously this league starts. There's 6 teams. There's more teams coming next year. Talk about your experience so far in this league, because I went to one event, the Kansas City event at the beginning of July, and obviously you're coming up on the second half of the season with the championship coming up in Arizona in October. What's your experience been like so far playing for JBB United and then playing obviously in this brand new National Pickleball League? New paddle company, Pickle, PCKL, great paddle line, great price points. Anything you want from starter paddle to intermediate to a pro series high level paddle. Check them out. Get 15% off using my discount code. Pickle. It's the future.
Are you looking to stay up to date on the latest pickleball news and tips? Look no further than the Sleeve Senior Pickleball Report newsletter. Get the scoop on the sport, learn how to stay healthy while playing, and find out about upcoming tournaments. Subscribe now to get all the pickleball info you need.
I started to get some partners lined up and get excited about some of the tournaments I was going to enter. And then can't remember if it was in January or February. I heard about the NPL, read a couple articles and was seeing some social media on it and asked around a little bit and thought, man, this could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Team event, organized. Everything sounds really fun. Obviously, it's the inaugural first season, but everything I was reading and hearing, I was all in and looking forward to it. So they had this combine that you're aware of in OKC, and I was kind of thinking it over, and I, skill wise or play wise, I felt comfortable that I was, could be a good attribute or a successful teammate on one of the teams, but I hadn't I hadn't traveled much further in the Midwest or even back east to play. Over the years, I traveled to California, maybe Arizona, northern Utah, and stuff to play, but I hadn't traveled. And so I thought, it's certainly not going to hurt. Why don't I go to this combine? And then also the owners, I thought the owners would likely come from the Midwest or back east, and they may not know a lot of these players that were, relatively well known or stuff in the West.
Right.
And so I decided to go, and I don't regret it. I had a great time, met a lot of people. There were a couple of owners in particular that showed some interest in me and were complimentary of my game.
Yeah.
And then you'll probably ask, which one drafted you? And it's the Naples JBB United. So
yeah, great name, by the way. I love that name. I do. Yeah, I know. I interviewed Bob. So talk about the combine. I mean, did you feel, I guess, a sense of, you knew what you could do, but it's one thing to do it, and it's another thing to do it now in front of some people who are, they're judging you. They're evaluating your talent skill. So was it a different sort of pressure than playing in a normal tournament? Or tell me about your emotions going into this and during it.
Yeah, it was certainly high pressure, I would say. It was, like I mentioned earlier, very organized and structured in the way they had it set up. There were the owners walking around with their general managers or, assistants. Yeah, taking notes on all the players, and the matches were, you could definitely feel the pressure. Just like a tournament, you felt the pressure, but I felt like I played well and had a lot of fun. The way they structured it was, perfect. It allowed enough play and enough open time to discuss and chat a little bit with some of the other players. Yeah. I knew that even though I wouldn't recognize many of the players in the combine, either because they were just becoming of age to be able to be eligible to play, or being in the Midwest or back East, I wouldn't recognize them, but I didn't overlook them, so to speak, because I knew with the huge influx of players last several years and stuff, that there would be a lot of relatively unknown players, so to speak, that were really good, that just hadn't yet had a chance to showcase their skills or see what they could do. So they were also going to the combine. So it was either, an age just becoming eligible to be able to play in the senior stuff, or the fact that I knew it was now, nationally, and there would be a lot of exposure and stuff in other parts of the country that I wasn't in. So that was the reason. Overall, it's great though.
Yeah. If you're traveling to a combine in a new league, you're probably a pretty serious player. And so I would think, like you mentioned, everybody that steps on the court is there because they believe they can do something there and make an impression. And obviously you were no different. So I think that was probably a pretty good self-advice you took, is take nobody lightly, because, they're all there to get on a team as well.
Yeah, it was fun. It was very competitive, a lot of good players. It's been fun to be in this league. I just, I'm really glad I got drafted. It's been fun to travel and look forward and get ready for these events. And
so let's talk about the draft. Were you nervous about getting drafted? Did you have any inkling who would draft you or anything like that? Or how did that play out for you?
Well, I think they held it in Florida. I wasn't there in person, but I was certainly logged on and trying to follow it. And I felt pretty confident that I would get drafted. I didn't know which team. There were a couple, one of them being, Bob Stroman in the Naples JBB United, and then his assistant or director of fun, she calls herself, Jennifer. Yeah. And so they showed some interest, and I just am extremely thankful and appreciative that they had faith and felt that there was a good opportunity opportunity for me to be on their team. And then there was one other team, but I felt, like I said, pretty confident, but I didn't know how it would go or whatnot. But it's been awesome. I just love playing and competing, and I've met a lot of friends along the way.
Yeah. I mean, pretty exciting when they call your name. It's got to be like a little surreal. Like, hey, I just got drafted in a thing I didn't know existed a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Right on. So let's talk about so far this season. How you feeling about team play, your team, your personal play, and moving forward to the second half of the season? Okay,
sure. Well, I think we're in a 3-way tie for the cellar. There's only 6 teams, so we're at 4 and 6, I believe, or no, maybe 4 and 8 rather. 4 and 8. But with that being said, a lot of these matches and events have been extremely competitive. It also depends on some of the top players on certain teams. Maybe they're one event and then not they're another, so that's changing a little bit. But even though we're a little, on the lower end a little bit as far as the current standings, I feel like we've been very competitive. I'd love to rotate in with some different partners and, try to test our different skills and complement each other with our different skill sets. And so it's been awesome. I'm getting ready to head out later this week for the 4th event in Wichita.
Right. And playing and win by 1, that's no joke either. That's a little bit of pressure.
Oh yeah. That's certainly the case. You wouldn't believe how many matches are 11-10.
I'm sure. And then the team breakers are the same thing. They're like, oh my gosh.
Our team's only been in one of those dream breaker or tiebreakers, and they were sitting me. I just be with the amount of players on our team, they have to rotate some of us in and out. But I was just itching. I was asking the owner if I could get in. Is there any way that I could get in for this? And he just said, "Well, you weren't in that session, whether it was a morning or afternoon. You're not allowed to play in it." So our team's been in one. But it's a cool format, extremely high pressure when you're only going to, one game to 11, win by 1, and with all those players rotating in and out.
Right. So let's talk about, kind of what you see this league, where it's going. I mean, obviously, you work things out first season. There's things that'll be changed, little things, tweaks and adjustments here and there. Where do you hope this goes? I mean, they've hit it out of the park, so to speak, right out of the gate. I mean, anybody I've ever talked to, interviewed, has been praising what NPL has done and the people that have organized it. And obviously you're treated, for as far as I could tell, being there and listening to other folks, you're really treated like professionals. So talk about where do you see, you'd like to see this go over the next few years.
Yeah, we are. And it's been so fun. These events and the little dinner banquet they have, traveling to different venues and
great venues, by the way.
What's that?
Great venues. I mean, the chicken and pickle venues are pretty cool.
Oh yeah, they're awesome. Yeah, I think they're great. I would like to see one suggestion I made to the commissioner when I was talking to him for a few minutes is, I'd like to maybe see a little smaller teams. That seems to be a consensus. It's a lot of players, and then even if you have some subs and stuff, 16, eight men, 8 women on a team is substantially larger than the MPL and how they're doing it. So I'd like to see somewhere in between what we currently have in NPL and what the MLP is doing.
Right.
I'm hearing that it's going to at least double. So they would go from 6 teams to 12. I'd like to see the team size decrease a little bit.
So they might move some of those folks to once they increase. So then you can have, like, if it goes down to, let's say 10 or 12, then obviously some of those folks would probably move to some of the newer franchises that are coming along as well. Yeah. Plus, obviously there's going to be other people trying out. So that should be interesting to see what partakes or what happens next year when they do expand.
Yeah. We'll see. I know they've been having some, the owners have been meeting before some of the events, I heard, discussing, potential changes, and everything's been positive. It's just, it's been great. I think they'll continue to make some improvements and learn from the prior year. And I don't see it getting anywhere but better and stronger. Right.
Yeah. Excellent. Anybody, before we wind this up, you want to talk about as far as helping you out along the way? I mean, you've been playing a long time, obviously. You mentioned your paddle sponsor, Onix, and Anybody else that you'd like to kind of throw a shout out to?
Well, thank you. Certainly want to give some credit to Bob Stroman and Jennifer LaCour, like I said, for drafting me on their team and being able to play with them. It's been fun. They treat us, like you said, like professionals, not only the league, but them as owners and managers. I've been very appreciative of Onix over the years. Like I said, I think I was their first in their first handful of sponsored players going back 10 years ago when sponsors became a thing, and have stuck with them, changed a little bit, evolved as they've come out with new paddles. And, they've always been supportive. I've tried not to take advantage of them and what they've offered me, and be appreciative and be, have good sportsmanship on the court and compete. I just love, like I said, as I, have gotten older and stuff, other than maybe an occasional golf scramble or a softball tournament or something, and kind of lost that opportunity to compete. And so this, pickleball, and then now with the NPL in general, it's just been so much fun to compete. I also want to, thank all my partners over the years. There's been so many. I started getting ready for the podcast, kind of writing them down. I just, over 14 years of playing, there's been so many of them. And I thought maybe I'd name a few, but I thought I might leave a few out and I would feel bad. There's been so many of them. It's so fun to adapt and change and use their skill set and their strengths and combine with yours and compete. And so I'm extremely thankful, and I've had so much fun competing over the years with all my partners. So I want to thank them. And then, you for helping promote the sport, and specifically seniors. I think it's great. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and as you've had the owners and some of the players in the NPL league on, I've listened to those, and it's been so fun to listen to different people's journeys and how they've gotten to where they are. And so it's overall, it's just been great.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. Yeah, it has been amazing to talk to folks in this league, the owners, players, general managers, founders, you name it, everybody. I think what kind of comes up is people are just super grateful to have an opportunity to play at a high level against their peers. And make no mistake about it, I witnessed this in person, folks. It is high level pickleball. I mean, you can watch it on YouTube, which is great. And they stream all the matches, which no other pro league is doing, by the way, except, NPL. But to see it in person on those courts, which are in tight quarters, so you can kind of get that stadium feel, it's phenomenal. I mean, the level of pickleball is incredibly high. And I just love the community that NPL has sort of helped build upon, because this, the senior champions, if you follow their social medias, I said this, ad nauseum, they are a tight knit group. They compete hard, but at the end of the day, y'all just want to hang out and have some fun and be grateful for what you have.
Certainly. Yeah, it's been awesome. And thank you for having me. It's been so much fun. I was looking forward to this, and excited to share a little bit of my story and background and how I've gotten involved and stayed in pickleball over all these years.
Hope you enjoyed our interview with Tom Tueller. Check out the links in the description for more details and discounts. And again, take a look at thrivepb.com, a different way of looking at swing weight in pickleball paddles, coming this September. All right, until next time, hey, let's pickle. Hey, if you're looking for very, very comfortable court shoes, in fact, the most comfortable court shoes I've ever worn, and I've worn a lot of them over the years playing different sports, try Fitville. We have a link in the description that gets you $20 off your purchase.